name is Jean Fay. I'm the host today. Thank you for joining our Take Flight Financial Wellness webinar series. Today's topic is digital identity, protecting your financial reputation in a data-driven world. We're going to go through some housekeeping items before we hand it over to Roger and get started on the presentation. Today's presenters are Roger Smith, and he is a VP of Information Security at Alaris. I was just asking Roger how long he'd been with the company, and he has at least 3 decades with us, so he knows a thing or two about digital security. I am the host, Jean Fay, Senior Relationship Manager and Retirement Specialist here at Alaris. And the moderator is my colleague, Jill Larson, and she's also a Senior Relationship Manager and Retirement Specialist at Alaris. Our housekeeping items that we'd like you to be aware of are that in terms of submitting questions, you're joining us on WebEx here today, and you are on mute. You want to make sure that you stay on mute during the presentation. Would you please submit any questions through the question and answer button, and the questions will be answered following the presentation. To change the layout on your screen, if you want to display it differently, you can essentially go up to the top corner of the screen and select layout. It will show you different versions of your screen layout. And to make changes to your audio, if you look down at the circled item below, you'll want to make certain that you do stay on mute, just so there's no ambient background noise while Roger is presenting. This, again, is part of our financial wellness series. If you want to find these meetings in the future, you can always go to alaris.com/takeflight. And we have a series of 12 once a month throughout the year, and you'll see all of them listed there. We welcome your feedback. At the end of the call, you will receive, anyone who participated will receive a survey asking you to provide feedback. We really appreciate and value that. It helps us to assess how that particular meeting went, as well as if there's any general feedback, how we would do better by you to take it into account when we're developing new webinars going forward. Today's agenda is basically that we are doing the welcome and introduction. We're going to talk about understanding today's fraud landscape, how fraudsters operate and warning signs thereof, strengthening your defenses, protecting your business and personal information, and leave you with some key takeaways. And then we will have a question and answer session at the end. Roger, as I'd alluded to, has 30 years at Alaris, specializing in information technology. He leads a team of 4 focused on information security, and we are so grateful for him. They keep us honest even here at Alaris. We are really spoken to quite often, being in financial services, about the imperative nature of being just vigilant about digital security. He's going to talk about cybersecurity management, strategic security oversight, threat detection and response, incident management, security policy and training, and internal controls and risk management. And all of that said, I'm going to hand it over to Roger to begin his presentation. Thank you so much for your time today, Roger.
Yep. Thanks, Jean. Yeah, I'd like to introduce just the presentation and then go to this slide afterwards. So today we're going to talk about how fraudsters gather information, how stolen data gets used and resold, and then most importantly, what you can do to protect your business and yourself. So my goal is to leave you with a clear understanding of how attacks, when they happen, what happens to that data, and then a checklist of defenses that you can use to strengthen your defense right away. The fraud has changed a lot in the last few years. It's faster, more targeted, and increasingly powered by automation and AI. So our defenses have to be just as deliberate. Gene has already introduced me, and I have been with Alaris for over 30 years, all in the information technology department. So yeah, we do see a lot of this stuff, and I will make comments as you could see what the things that we bump up against as well. But we'll go on to this slide, which is the world we live in today. And so today, cybercrime is industrialized and accelerating. Threat actors use automation and commoditized tooling at a massive scale. For example, one major report observed global scanning volumes equivalent to 36,000 scans per second. That's hitting your information, your website, your data, 36,000 times per second. That matters because scanning is the shopping phase that criminals use, and they're constantly searching for exposed systems, weak passwords, and unpatched services. Second, AI is both a defense tool and a weapon. We're seeing deepfakes, voice cloning, and synthetic impersonation being used to trick people. And this is why fraud is increasing. It's becoming increasingly precise and psychological. It's not always about breaking, it's about convincing someone to do something, if you think about phishing. Also, regulatory pressure is intensifying. AI, privacy, breach notifications, and compliance expectations continue to expand, which raises complexity and the costs. We're also dealing with a workforce challenge. One industry survey reported 55% of cybersecurity teams are understaffed, and
Mm.
only 29% of the companies train non-security staff into cyber roles. The practical takeaway is that because defenders are stretched thin, organizations need to design controls that are simple, repeatable, and resilient. And finally, the attack surface is expanding. There's more mobile access, more cloud services, more vendors, and more just all over more digital touch points. So how do criminals actually pick their targets and build an attack? That starts with what I call the hunt. Fraudsters don't usually attack blindly. They gather intelligence from multiple sources, build a profile, and then tailor a message that looks believable. First is what's called OSINT, or open source intelligence. Fraudsters use this publicly available information. Think of social media accounts that might have details about job roles and connections, company websites with staff directories, and public records like registrations or filings. By itself, none of this seems dangerous, but combined, it helps criminals map your organization and identify who can approve payments, reset credentials, or change vendor instructions. Second is social engineering or manipulating people. Um, Down in the lower right, you can see that phishing remains the dominant social engineering tactic because it works. It leverages urgency, authority, and routine behavior. The chart is a simple illustration that phishing tends to be the highest success tactic compared to other types of approaches like pretexting or baiting. Now let's break down the specific sources criminals use during profiling. So as I mentioned before, open source intelligence, information found on social media, company websites, public records, and news coverage. Attackers are looking for names, titles, reporting lines, vendor relationships, and even travel or schedule patterns. Then comes social engineering. Phishing and spear phishing is being used to get credentials. Pretexting to build trust so that it seems like a legitimate request, and baiting, which offers free offers or links that lure someone into a trap. And on the technical side, criminals use scanning and exploitation tools, including services like Shodan and criminalip.io. And from those sites and other sites, they can buy malware and exploits the same way you would buy any other piece of software off the web. Finally, they feed on breach data. Some of this data is posted on pastebin sites and often distributed through dark web channels. So the takeaway here is that criminals assemble puzzles from small pieces of information. Your job is to reduce these pieces and add verification steps to these pieces where money and sensitive data is involved. So what happens once data is stolen? It usually doesn't stop with one incident. It ends up in a marketplace. So cybercrime, they do have the black market. Stolen information isn't just used once. It's packaged, sold, and traded into a thriving underground economy. A single breach of data can fuel fraud attempts against your business or your employees for months or years. Credentials and personal identity information are especially valuable because they provide direct access for account takeover opportunities and the ability to impersonate. And if you notice in the lower right corner of this slide, breach data spreads quickly into the dark web markets, ransomware, leak sites, underground forums, and even automated bots. That speed is one reason containment is so difficult once the data gets out.
Mhm.
Now let's flip from an attacker mindset or what the fraudsters are thinking into a defender mindset. What actually works? So on this slide, protecting your business requires layers, different layers of technology, policy, and most importantly, an educated, diligent workforce. Technology does matter. Things like endpoint detection, logging, encryption, multi-factor authentication, patching, backups, all that tech stuff, that does still matter, but your people are the first line of defense. Many major fraud events succeed because someone is either rushed, trust is exploited, or a process just doesn't require verification. The point of this visual is balance. Technical controls create the foundation, but the human layer is where phishing and impersonation are either stopped or allowed through. So let's get concrete. First, business technical controls. I'm going to walk through this next slide. If you want to flip slides, try to walk through this in plain English. This is a baseline set of defenses that reduces the most fraud risk. So number one, strong passwords and multi-factor authentication. Can't stress multi-factor authentication enough. That is what stops us. So MFA or multi-factor authentication is one of the biggest fraud reducers because a stolen password alone cannot unlock an account. Patch management, or keeping your systems up to date with security patches. Most successful attacks exploit known weaknesses. Use your updates to close these doors and automate your security updates. Endpoint security and network security. You want detection and prevention on all devices and all the network paths that they use. Encryption. Ensure that your data is encrypted at rest and in transit so it's harder for the thief to monetize on it. Backups, and not just backups, but backups that are, I've got a couple big words in here, immutable and air-gapped. Immutable means it's a tamper-proof backup. Air-gap means it's not on your network with the rest of your data. It's isolated. Let's see, least privilege. Limit access so that if one account does get compromised, it can't do everything. Logging or using a SIM. You can't really respond to what you can't see. So logging access attempts really helps detect suspicious behavior early. And technology alone isn't enough. Here are the policy and people controls that make the tech effective. So first off, security awareness training, especially phishing simulations, help build the reflex to pause and verify. Slow down, verify that email before you start clicking links. Incident response planning. When something does go wrong, speed matters. A documented plan reduces confusion and shortens downtime. Vendor security management becomes important. Many fraud attempts involve vendor impersonation or payment misdirection. Vendor verification procedures really matter here. Data minimization. If you don't need it, don't keep it accessible. The less data means less exposure. Physical security is still important. The fraud isn't just digital. Securing devices, physical mail, and office access still matter.
Mhm.
And cyber insurance. You can't use this as a substitute for security controls, but it should be a part of your resilience planning. And now I want to shift from business controls to more personal controls because fraud often does cross over from home to work. So on the next slide, or this slide here, these are the three core personal habits you can use to prevent most of the account takeover style fraud. Strong authentication. As I mentioned, I'll keep mentioning it, multi-factor authentication, very important here. Also using strong passwords or passphrases. But when you get to systems like your email, banking, and critical accounts, use that multi-factor authentication. Most systems offer it. And then never reuse passwords. Also, one thing that creeps in every once in a while is don't use your business credentials on personal sites. Personal sites get hacked quite more often than business sites do. So that's how credential reuse turns into a workstation compromise. Second one, keep your systems updated. Apply security updates in your computers and mobile devices and automate them where possible. Watch for phishing. Verify identities before acting on requests involving money or sensitive data. And be cautious with unexpected links and attachments. Now, the next slide is more about device and network basics, and these are the easy ones there. Secure your devices with reputable antivirus and anti-malware, and then also enable firewalls. This helps block the common infections.
Mhm.
Protect your network by avoiding the use of public Wi-Fi for sensitive transactions. Use a strong home Wi-Fi password and consider using a VPN when you're using financial or confidential systems. And personally back up regularly. Cloud storage or external drives help you recover from ransomware or device loss. Finally, alerting and exposure checks. The earlier you know, the faster you can stop the damage. Most systems, especially banking systems, will let you turn on alerts, low balance alerts, access alerts, things like that. So make sure you turn on alerts on your banking and email. Notifications can be the difference between stopping fraud early or discovering it too late. Practice cyber hygiene. Log out when you're finished with your computer. Avoid using public computers for sensitive tasks. And don't overshare on social media. Check your exposure. There's a link on this slide at the bottom. It's called haveibeenpwned.com.
Mm.
Put in your email address, and that'll tell you what breaches your email address has been used in. And it goes back quite a few years. So that's a really good reference there.
Roger, I
So
have to say, I've been afraid to try it yet. Because
yep.
I know that over the years I've gotten messages from like credit card companies and so on, so saying that your email's out on the dark web, and you think you're doing everything right, but it's amazing. It's really this is a good example in just being as cautious as it can be. Even like the don't overshare on social media. I always think to myself, because I'm very private about what I share on social media, that people overshare. And
Yep.
it's no wonder that fraudsters can know something about you when people are telling a
Yeah,
different story on the social media platform. So thank you. This is all great information.
you bet. Now I saved that scary slide for last here. So ransomware, you hear about it in the news. Um, Ransomware right now is probably the most disruptive fraud event that can happen to a business or an individual. The ransomware forces hard decisions under pressure. So the best time to decide what you're going to do during ransomware is before it happens. So a couple of considerations. Determine if you would actually pay a ransomware fraudster. What's your data worth? Do you trust that the criminals, even if you do pay them, will they give you the key to unlock your data? Or do you trust a criminal to not release your data out to the dark web? Just a consideration. If payment is considered, do you have the logistics figured out? Do you have a crypto account? Do you know who can authorize payments from them? Who can put money into the crypto account? Another consideration is, do you report it to legal authorities? The pathway should be known in advance. Once you do report this to legal authorities, it becomes public record. So just something to think about. In preparation, uh, one of the best things that we do it here each year as well, and it's great to sit around a table, do a tabletop exercise with a scenario. We got ransomware and talk it through. Come up with a plan before something does happen. Come up with other logistics. Who's going to be on the response team and what are their roles? Who will communicate to employees, clients, or if you report it or someone finds out, the media? Who's going to talk to the media? And also, how will the negotiation decisions be handled with the fraudsters? Document playbooks and procedures. Also, to find out where you may be weak or what your data is worth, do risk assessments and business impact analysis so you know what systems matter the most. An insurer backup and recovery strategy includes the immutable and air-gapped options. Plus, validate the restores. Backups are only good if you can actually restore the data, so test that out as well. Then understand your cyber insurance coverages before you actually need them. So these are the just high-level topics I wanted to share with you today. So I'd say we could move on to questions. Jean or Kim, have we had any questions come in?
Great. We have a couple here. Would you recommend Voice ID?
I just had this question the other day. Someone asked me that. I think, Jean, that might have been you.
It was. It was.
It is a good control, and it was, probably even more effective in the past years, but it's still a control. Voice identification, I use it on one of my systems as well. It's one of the layers that business is going to use to identify you. It's probably not the only layer. Probably, 4 or 5 years ago, Voice ID would actually get you into your system. Now they're going to step up authentication. Voice ID can be mimicked by AI very easily. So they're going to step up their authentication, maybe ask for a multi-factor code as well as that Voice ID. So I would say stick with it. It's another part of authentication.
All right, a couple more good ones here. If my information has been stolen, what's the first thing I do?
The first thing to do is reach out to one of the credit monitoring, go and change your passwords in your banking accounts and, where it may have been taken from, emails, change your email password. Also, if you haven't flipped on multi-factor or other controls, now would be the time to do that, but change your password so that it can't happen again. Trying to find out where your identity got stolen is really tricky. And that's where some of these credit monitoring companies, as well as companies that are out there, you just Google search them. I can't recommend any certain one. I haven't used any myself, but there are some that really stand out that can help pull the information back off the internet. If you did have a data leak or somebody leaked your data, there are companies that you can sign up for subscriptions to go and have that data removed.
All right, one more here. This is a good one. What are the top 3 things I can reasonably do to protect my identity?
The top 3, if I can have you go home with 3 things: multi-factor authentication, turn it on wherever you can. Email being very important. Not people don't think it's that important, but email boxes are being captured and taken over by criminals all the time. So turning on multi-factor authentication there in your banking apps. Also automate all the security patches that Microsoft might push down, or Apple or whoever, on your mobile device and your workstation. Make sure you take those right away. The time to exploit these is getting smaller and smaller each day. So make sure that the best thing to do is just automate it. Tell your computer, just go ahead and put patches on when they're available. And then the third thing, so I've got multi-factor patching and then reuse of passwords. Make sure you don't use the same password for your email as you do for your banking account. That's a good example. Your email password may be exploited very easily where your banking went. But if you're using the same password, these fraudsters, they will just look at your profile and try all the passwords from past breaches to get in. So if you just keep separate passwords for separate systems, that will keep you out of hot water there as well.
That's good. That's good. I think I said it earlier. I always think, it'll never happen to me. And then I hear you talk, Roger, and I get hyper vigilant about it again. So this is all super great information. That's all I have for questions, unless anybody has any last minute ones. I don't see any more in the chat or the Q&A. So
Well, okay. Well, Roger, again, to piggyback off of Jill, just such great information. It really is making me personally be more vigilant, and I'm speaking with, friends and loved ones about it more often as well. I think that the information that you've shared, even like about fishing or any of the things that are putting at risk, are often we get lackadaisical because we're rushed, right? So take the extra time, take the extra effort. When it comes to passwords, it's nice to be able to use the same one, across systems. Everybody has their favorite dog's name or things that are really too easy to get at. Make the effort, because in the absence of doing so, you may well regret it, right? So
Yeah.
we greatly appreciate your time today. For all that have joined, we appreciate your joining. Alaris really values your feedback if you want to take a minute to do the survey. And we strongly encourage you to join our future monthly webinars. In cases where you can't join because it's just not practical during the day, please access the recordings on our website, and pick out the ones that seem most relevant to you. Some may hit home a little bit harder than others. And just thank you for your interest and your time, and hope that you have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you much.
Yeah, thank you all.